we begin by deeply exhaling out of our mouths. Pause. Inhale gently through our nose. Pause. Exhaling out our mouths fully. Pause. Inhale grace. Pause. Exhale whatever you need to. Pause. The next time you hear the phrase, take a breath, I want to invite you to exhale fully before taking in a breath. So important for our biopsychosocial and spiritual grounding and connection. God gave us the gift of a parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us regulate. And we can activate that through a long exhale. Isn't that amazing? All right, I am eager to invite you into some reflections today on benefit finding. But what I need to know first is, can you hear what I am saying in this room? The beauty of no? Maybe? Sketchy? I'll try to project more. I didn't want to take you out of a state of relaxation too quickly, but let's activate, shall we? Okay. I'd like to say thank you. Thank you. Why? You bless people, and you help us all glorify God through music. Thank you, because you and people like you give us and people like me the soundtrack for worship in all of life. And thank you, because you teach us how to breathe with words and sounds and silence together, reminding us that we are not alone. So thank you. You already know this theme, so beautifully introduced by Doug. And how many of you are quite familiar with the Harmony Project 2.0? If you are not, this is an invitation to Google Harmony Project 2.0 later. Maybe not now. I've already excerpted a few things for you. Polyphony is committed to helping church musicians. Raise your hand if that sounds like you. Awesome. Flourish in your ministries, and to using the findings of our research to benefit both church musicians and the church as a whole. Now, I was not connected to this, but I am a researcher for over 3 decades, and so this just made my heart sing. I did a little search of the PDF that you too can find online, and I searched for things like Bene, and then found like dozens and dozens of references, and appreciate, etc., and gratitude and so forth. So I just excerpted a few of those things to weave into this presentation, and you too can go on a treasure hunt in there. Okay, so what are some of the benefits that popped off the page for me, or the screen in my case? Beneficial relationships were really key. The benefit of being able to seek wise feedback was a benefit that was noted in this research by church musicians, maybe even you. The benefit of music and worship, certainly as the center of appreciation, but also the breadth and depth of relationships. And then there was this whole section on the variety of professional and life practices that are sustaining. These are all benefits, and I simply want to call this to mind. And so when you are feeling like you cannot breathe, I just came from a meeting, and I counted no fewer than 4 comments about breathing related to stress. I just couldn't breathe until I felt like an elephant was on my chest. I felt so stuck. I needed to catch my breath. So it's biological, and it's connected to our psychological, social, emotional, and spiritual functioning. And there are things that we can do, and benefit finding is one of them. So I want to say clearly, you matter. You matter. Not all of us hear those words, and so I'm going to be a person in your life who says you matter, and what you do matters. You add vital value to the church. Think about the enduring legacy of what you contribute. It is for now, and it is for the future. So thank you. Not everyone hears words like this. This I pulled out of the document. Someone heard these words, and if you have never heard these words and it is the longing of your life to have someone say them to you, I will say these words right now over you. I really appreciate the gifts that you bring to us week to week in worship, because there's what's heard and seen, and there's everything that is unheard and unseen that makes those moments possible. So, thank you. Breathing space, the longer title. How benefit finding in hard times can help us tell more of the truth and move forward. So we're going to talk about benefit finding as a general practice, so it can become a way of life that comes to characterize us and our character. Benefit finding when we're facing uncertainty, and how that can activate hope and happiness when we're like really desiring a future good that we can work towards, but we can't control whether it's going to happen, okay? Benefit finding as an antidote to resentment. Has anyone ever experienced or maybe witnessed resentment? Okay. What about a crisis? Benefit finding as an asset when facing crisis. And benefit also as a resource when facing interpersonal injustice. I'm talking about real life hurts where we're experiencing a moral breach or some relational wreckage, okay? Now, truth-telling is important. So the benefit finding that I'm talking about is not that awful substitute called the saccharine version of bright-siding. And I would invite all of us, the next time we feel an urge to say, they should be more grateful, do not go there. Don't should on people with bright-siding, they should be more grateful. I said should, S-H-O-U-L-D. I did. Do I have a witness? Okay, all right. Thank you. Woo! Okay, so sometimes our lives are feeling like this. Doom, gloom, dark, heavy clouds. Very little light. Fair? And sometimes we have to trust that the sun is shining even when we cannot see it. I'm not sure who I'm quoting or paraphrasing. You can call it out if you know. You might have a song coming to mind. Okay. Sometimes people talk about benefit finding as the ability to see both the dark cloud. Hi, Randy.
Hey.
Good to see you. Oh, hi. Good to see you. And also the silver lining. It's the and capacity. It is acknowledging profound grief and the presence of givers in our lives, of loss, and of gifts we may not even notice before we had the loss. They were hidden to us, and now we see. It's the capacity for lament. But without hope, lament becomes despair. Mm-hmm. And without the capacity to lament, hope can slip into naive optimism. Mm-hmm. And with neither lament nor hope, this is Kelly Kapic, by the way, you can get this detached stoicism, and it's really about lament and hope going together. Mm-hmm. So it's the gift of and. I got to go a little faster here, my friends. All right. How do we make benefit finding a way of life? Benefit finding is glad acknowledgement of gifts and givers. Glad acknowledgement, not begrudging acknowledgement, glad acknowledgement. And that helps us see ourselves as recipients or beneficiaries of benefits from benefactors, givers. Sometimes we experience this as a state of experiencing and expressing gratitude. And ideally, the more we practice benefit finding, the more it comes to characterize us. Because people who would have a grateful character quality or virtuous disposition characteristically see goods, wherever they find them, as gifts. And respond with gratitude to givers for these gifts. Now, grateful people, there's a lot of research on gratitude. How many of you have encountered it or maybe even done a gratitude journal? I have a handout at the end. Let's see, where are you, Susan? Susan's in charge of handouts at the end. Grateful people have more intense grateful responses. They have more frequent gratitude, even for small stuff. They notice more gifts in any span of time. They just see more goods as gifts. And behind any single gift, they notice a whole density of givers. So we're going to try this a minute, and I'm going to guide you in how to do gratitude density a quick minute here. So I invite you, reflect on one good thing in your life. One good thing. I'll go first, and maybe it'll activate your imagination. I'm going to give thanks for the good gift that I breathe even while sleeping. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here to be with you. And I consider you a gift, so I'm really grateful. It's good because it keeps me alive without me trying to make it happen. And now I need to name a giver connected to this gift. Wow, okay, I'm grateful for Durant and Sheila, for my life. And I'd like to think about givers behind the givers and givers behind those givers. So I could start to name other people who are connected to the people who raised me. And ultimately, it's God who's the giver behind all givers. Can you find something good in your life, even if your life is like, oh, it's really like that dark cloud right now? One good thing. And a giver behind that. And givers behind that person, and behind that person, and behind that person. And the ultimate giver of every good, imperfect gift. Okay, we can measure gratitude. That was that quick flash. And I'm going to go somewhat briefly through these things, but I want you to know that people who live gratefully tend to be more agreeable, more stable, and more extroverted. Now, that is no hopelessness for the introverts among us. Don't worry. This is just a matter of degree. It's just that gratitude isn't just for benefits, it's for benefactors. And so people who tend to be really oriented towards other people are going to be really noticing other people and interacting with them more. So this is not like a wall for introverts, okay? But it helps make sense of things. And so being a grateful person with grateful character is also associated with being more empathic, being more forgiving, altruistic, accountable, less envious and materialistic. Because it's all centered on goodness among us. Greater religious and spiritual characteristics. Faith is more important on average for more grateful people. They tend to read scripture, pray, and nurture their relationship with God and be attuned to spiritually transcendent matters in their lives. This isn't all or none, but the more grateful they tend to be as a character quality, these things come to describe them. And greater well-being and positive emotion, more satisfaction with life, more general positivity and hope, less negative affect, and so forth. This is no substitute for mental health care. I have a PhD in clinical psychology, okay? Also associated with other virtues, patience, forgiveness, self-control, humility, welcoming accountability in relationships. Now, at the time this went on, well, I'll not say that. We're going to move on and dive in. We're going to talk about benefit finding when facing uncertainty. And I'm just going to hop to the findings. The question is centrally, is gratitude a great big old server of a giant slice of hope pie? Most researchers don't talk like that. It's a metaphor. But do the practices of gratitude, benefit finding and benefactor noticing, right? Does that serve up a lot of hope pie? Oh yeah. In fact, I have all the data to show you, and I could go into it, but what I'm going to tell you is the slice of hope pie is so big, and it's significantly bigger than when you combine patience and self-control and forgivingness towards other people. So those are great virtues. They're all connected to hope. But when you bundle all those, gratitude has massive oomph beyond it, and you get a great big piece of hope pie. Lots of different ways of measuring hope. Same thing, okay? I gotta definitely skip past some slides. What about the happiness pie? What does the gratitude serve up in terms of happiness? Does it go beyond bundling everything that patience and self-control, those are great things, right? And forgiveness. I've dedicated my research career to forgiveness. I love forgiveness. It's huge. It serves up a giant piece of happiness pie, bigger than the other three all combined. But what about when facing uncertainty? So I'd like you to think about a hope you currently hold. Some good, an outcome, a goal that you can work toward, but it's not entirely in your control. Is there something you're aiming for? You'd really love to see? You've got some part to play. It's not all up to you. You could think nationally, globally, in your church, in your personal life, anything. Does anybody have some good they'd love to see that's different from right now? A few friends in the room, okay. You're all friends, that's okay. We did an experiment. So we measured people after they thought of this hope they hoped to see. And then we said, now recall a time. This is benefit finding by looking back, okay? Recall a time you had a similar hope that was fulfilled. And gratefully remember that in detail. What did other people contribute? How did you pursue that? Where did you see God at work? Bunch of questions about that. They wrote about that. Then, of course, you have to have a control condition, and so you could think about your travel routes every day. We're going to compare it. At the start of the study, right here, that was the level of hope, and that was the level of happiness. And after the travel routes control condition, hope and happiness went down. But when remembering this past hope that was fulfilled, hope was elevated and happiness was elevated. This is all mental. This is kind of like a Psalm 103 move. Forget not all God's benefits. Like, remember some past prayer that was answered. Not everyone, we get what we want. I am with you in there. But it is important that we not just be like, okay, great, I put that hope fulfilled in my pocket and now I forget about it forever. Some savoring. It's like many traditions, maybe not yours, maybe yes yours, have this prayer before the Lord's Supper, communion, Eucharist, I'm not sure what you call it in your tradition. And remembering God's mighty acts throughout salvation history is kind of, actually I was reflecting on this. Sometimes I have thoughts during the offertory. And I dreamed up a study, okay? It's like, oh, I wonder if that might help for more things. Okay, so it's a little echo of Psalm 103 there. Now let's move on. Can it be an antidote to resentment? Okay? Because let's be honest. The Polyphony Harmony 2.0 talked about detrimental relationships as well as beneficial relationships, right? Have you ever heard of those, maybe? Seen one once? Yeah. But I've been thinking a lot about Romans 12, Galatians 5, Ephesians 4, and Colossians 3, things like the renewal of our minds, what we're supposed to rid ourselves of, like malice, and what we're supposed to clothe ourselves with, these Christ-like virtues. And on a character level, greater gratitude is associated with more happiness and flourishing, less anxiety and depression. Again, no substitute for quality professional care, but an awesome adjunct to it to tell more of the truth, not less about our lives. Whereas more resentment elevates our heart rate, makes it difficult to regulate cardiovascularly. We have more emotion dysregulation too. Emotionally, it's tough. We have less of the good stuff. It's hard to flourish. So I wanted to know, would appreciative versus resentful mindsets toward real people in participants' lives make a difference? So we compared a focus on beneficial relationships versus a focus on detrimental relationships that were really going on in real life. And I'm going to try not to get too in the weeds, but I'm going to tell you, yes, as an experiment, we did all the right things. We had control and all that. Okay. So I took a little nugget just to, I can read this to you. You can just close your eyes if you want to. But think about, I don't think too hard about these because we're going to move on to gratitude, okay? But think about relationships in your life that haven't been as good as you think they should be. Take a moment to focus on times people have treated you unfairly, made mistakes, had bad habits, or neglected to do what they should toward you. Really sense your resentment, frustration, irritation, or even grudges towards others. Okay? And the nugget at the heart of the gratitude writing and imagery was, think about relationships in your life. Are you ready for a shift? Please exhale. That have been better than you expected or better than they could be. Take a moment to focus on times people have treated you well, did more good than they needed to, and have been supportive or encouraging toward you. Really sense your appreciation, thankfulness, gratitude, and even radiate this graciousness toward others. So it's meant to be kind of two sides of a coin, really looking at the difference. And what we can see here, so this is the control where they were doing it just to sit and relax and exhale. Think the word one every time you exhale. So they're thinking about something, but not much. And sort of what's their body doing and what do they say they feel like, and then after the resentment condition, after the gratitude condition. So that's what these are comparing. So you can see gratitude was associated with greater joy, hope, generosity toward others, and SDNN. You're like, what's that? Okay, this is cardiac regulation. This is a measure of cardiac regulation. That's really all I'm going to say. I could be happy talking about physiology for extended periods of time, but not right now. This is really good, really, really important. Did you know your heart's not a metronome, by the way? And it's really important that your heart is not a metronome. If your heart is a metronome, it's actually not responding to external demands or internal demands. And so that's actually dysregulated. To be able to wait to beat, and I mean, I'm not talking about erratic heart stuff, that's different, right? There's a bandwidth of good and then not good again, okay? But sometimes longer time between beats, less time between beats, and that variability is actually indicative of you're really responsive to what the demands are, and that is so good. It's deeply tied to the breath. And to make this, like in a moment, just a few seconds go better, that's why we started with exhaling through the mouth, like fully. You all know about diaphragmatic breathing. You know how to do that so beautifully. And you can work out your own pacing with a pause and an inhale through the nose and a pause and a really exhaling fully through the mouth. Really, really important. I kid you not, it's not just an abstract idea, like try it. Some people like to say like, if the inhale is tracing your hand, then the exhale, and you can like find your own pattern, but it helps maybe ground you and say, no, I'm really doing, this is what I'm doing right now. That's all. This is what I'm doing. Fully focused on breathing. That's it. That's good. Okay. Very important. So shifting from resentment toward appreciation activates these good things and more, many more. Now in polyphony, I think it's really interesting because this dovetails with like focusing on beneficial relationships. I'm like, that is so powerful. Like read this document and really it's like it becomes part of a research project with yourself. Like what happens when I really stop to focus on the benefits and the benefactors in my life? And for whom am I a benefactor? Right? Because it's not just we want to hoard this stuff. We want to be a conduit of grace. That's the generosity thing we were just talking about. But there were a host of relationships that were mentioned throughout this document. Within the church, across churches, friends, family, other people when I was going to school, people who mentored me, my teachers growing up, like all sorts of people. And just remember, activate those social networks. Remember to stay connected. The expression of gratitude to someone who thinks you've forgotten them when you actually think about them every time you start a rehearsal. What a tremendous gift. Go make a benefit for somebody. When facing interpersonal injustice, we're going to talk about this next, okay? Oh, no, we're not. Fake out. Okay. When is it hardest to practice gratitude? All this stuff. Okay, and so just a very quick mention. We have had a dozen years of partnership across a cluster of psychologists, psychiatrists, and chaplains working in a particular psychiatric hospital with folks. It's the psychiatrists and the chaplains who ask us the research questions. They're like, we really want to know. And then we design how to like learn that so that it can feed right back into this very hospital for how they do what they do, okay? And so we even found that gratitude and patience played a role in accounting for how people were grappling with meaning and suicidal thoughts. So the capacity to see benefits, even upon admissions for a psychiatric crisis, ended up being very, very important. It's the ability to acknowledge fully what is not going well and what I need right now without shame, clarity, and honesty. And that when there's that capacity to say, and as part of truth telling, I can also say, I'm grateful for the person who brought me here, who loves me enough to say, I want to see you through this. I want you to see you through this, right? Very, very, very powerful. Okay, now we'll talk about interpersonal injustice. I'm not going to talk much about compassion, which is so weird for me because compassion is like my thing. But we're going to focus on benefits. Benefit finding when facing interpersonal injustice helps us tell more of the truth because interpersonal injustice is a giant dirt pile. And so we're not going to ignore it, but it's saying, and in the midst of facing this relational wreckage for which I hold XYZ accountable for having done and not done, and these impacts as a result, I also see people who were there for me. Strengths I really showed. I did that. I learned this thing I want to hold on to so I don't walk into that kind of situation again, or I detect quickly when to get out, right? Those kinds of things I'm calling benefit finding moves. Okay, you believe it's real research. We can talk about rumination. It's really bad. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the benefits focus. And I have like several studies with this. And what I want to say is I've talked to you so far a little bit about self-report in the heart, but I want you to know I do a lot of facial stuff because the face ends up being really important. You know that if you conduct and sing or anything like that. In the cardiovascular system, we've done some work with the brain, we've done genetics work. But what's so potent is what you set your hearts on and minds on, even more than what we're born with. That's what does the heavy lifting. That's what serves up the great big slice of flourishing pie. Okay. All right, so benefit-focused reappraisal of this interpersonal offense, a real-life interpersonal offender. This is what the participants are doing in the lab, who I hold responsible for having done or failed to do X, Y, Z in a way that had these adverse impacts, okay? So truth-telling about that. And now, benefit-focused reappraisal is, let's also tell the truth about benefits and coping with this adversity. Any ways I could honestly say I've grown, would rather not have grown. Never wanted that to happen, okay? No Pollyanna masochism going on here. Lessons learned, strengths shown, all while being honest about the difficulty. It's saying there is a really dark cloud, and also, woo! This is an example from page 30 of the Harmony 2.0 project, that PDF that you get to consult. You can just put down holy curiosity, the gift of holy curiosity. People who approach ministry with a holy curiosity, not coming in like the hotshot that's got all the answers, more coming in saying, teach me something. What don't I know about this place? What don't I know about this thing? What could we discover together? Those have been the most impactful relationships for me and where I found the most ease in terms of a working dynamic. It's a great example of being able to notice a benefit even in a tough situation. Okay, experiment, all the conditions, everything done right. Okay. So what I'm going to point you to is orange. Can you see the orange? Okay. So this is ruminating about the offense that really did happen to me and its adverse impacts in all the ways that was really horrible. Okay. This is compassion data in this color blue, and this is benefit-focused reappraisal data, and I just didn't block out these things here. Okay. But you can see benefit-focused reappraisal reduced emotional arousal or intensity, reduced anger, and reduced sadness. So did compassion. We love compassion. And promoted positivity, happiness, joy, peace, and a sense of being in control. More empathy, forgiveness, and gratitude. Benefit-focused reappraisal really oomphed up the gratitude. That's a statistically significant word, oomphed up, okay? And empathy and forgiveness were more potently driven by compassion. However, benefit-focused work still did a lot of heavy lifting for forgiveness. So if you're really thinking, I'm supposed to forgive this person, I want to forgive this person, I'm so not there right now, compassion's a really heavy lift, and we don't want to slip into saying that was okay, because if we say that's okay, we're not talking about forgiveness, because forgiveness is for when it's not okay. But sometimes a benefit-focused approach helps get us out of the pitiest pit, and then we're in a space where maybe we're more supple to tell the truth about the humanity of the offender and why what that was wrong, but I can desire their good change because I see they need it. Okay. All right, so let's look at a benefits focus, decreased voltage. Did you know you're electric? You know you are electric, right? You know you're chemical, but you're also electric, okay? So you generate voltage. So go like this. It's the corrugator, but I always call it the gurrigator, so you can kind of remember. It's associated with intense negative emotion. And benefit-focused reappraisal, reliving that offense and that offender and thinking about them, but also noticing the lessons learned, the growth experience, the people who may have been there, benefits that we were talking about just a minute ago, quieted down the tension at that brow. They're still thinking about the offender and the offense, but it just kind of deflates the negativity a little bit. Smiling muscle. It's not like they're super grinning. I mean, we need electrodes to detect this, but it's there. There's a shift happening. You see it? And you want higher here. Better cardiac regulation. This is like that SDNN thing I was talking about a minute ago where it's good, healthy heart. A benefit focus. Really thinking about the person who did the wrong. Re-regulates the heart. Isn't that amazing? Like people, I have to tell you, this is really amazing. Even if it only looks like a little orange box. So there's all this good stuff that happens. People rate it, they write about it, their faces are showing it, their heart is reflecting it. And one thing that's really powerful is the resumption of joy, smiling, that regulated nervous system. And so if I were to just depict it, you can't read this, but I'll read it to you. It's like rumination is, there's this saying that says bitterness. Drinking poison and hoping somebody else will die. I don't think we should hope anybody dies. I want to be clear about that, right? It is meant as a not funny joke. But like the idea that I can just really stew in this garbage and that's going to be healthy for me. It's not. It's not good for anybody. And so benefit finding is not bright-siding. It's like, this is wrong, it had this adverse effect, or these adverse impacts, and it's also the case. I showed these strengths. I learned these things. I showed insight in this way, and I'm going to hold on to that, and people were there in this way, and I see now, in a way I didn't sense then, God's provision, and thus in such a way. The brain. Brain waves. A special brain wave that we focused on. This is a brain wave that reacts when there's a clash between the emotion you're experiencing and the emotion you read about, and I'm going to go super fast. So if you read a lot of negative words like this, but you're in a really happy place and you're doing really positively, you're going to have a big brain wave reaction. And trust me, it's really what happened. And you can read about it. It basically says benefit-focused reappraisal takes a bad situation, tells the truth about it, and suddenly we're in a more coherent, positive place. And so I'm super excited about this because we've learned from all these different things that our mindsets matter and our practices matter. And we can practice setting our mind on telling more of the truth, not less. And with Psalm 103, forgetting not, actively remembering benefits and seeing them as gifts from God. And I want to thank Polyphony. So thank you.